On. Hello, hello, and hello, and welcome back to another episode of Nothing Zilch Nada with your hosts. I'm Xavier Dean.
And Jacob Green.
So, I was picking the topic for today, and I know my last topic I picked was a movie theme, and I don't like to double dip. However, with the recent releases of Happy Gilmore 2 and Freakier Friday, both of which I didn't really see needed sequels. One of which I was proven wrong, one of which I haven't seen yet. I,
Five Nights at Freddy's is getting a sequel,
Five Nights at Freddy's is getting a sequel, but that
which
one,
I kind of expected a little bit.
well, so did I. I also feel like that one could have used a sequel, just because there's so much to it.
Mhm. Yeah.
But anyway, because of or Happy Gilmore 2 and Freakier Friday, I decided that we should talk about some movies, either movies that have sequels that don't need more, or movies that don't have any sequels that really don't need sequels. Now, the one big stipulation, we're not going with obvious ones, like, the Fast and Furious movies. Yeah, it's got 11 movies with the 12th one coming out. After that 12th one, it doesn't need any more. We're already establishing that.
Yeah. Saying that we don't want another Fast and Furious movie is like saying we don't want another Assassin's Creed game.
I would say more, we don't need another Call of Duty game than Assassin's Creed game.
Yeah, I guess I could see that.
Yeah. But, we're also leaving out, or at least I'm leaving out superhero movies. Jake, I don't know if you have any superhero movies on your list. I just,
I have one that might be considered a superhero movie,
one that might be
but
considered. Oh,
well,
I don't like the fact that you said might, because I've got one on my list that technically you could consider one too. We might have gotten the same one.
yeah.
But anyway, I have left out Marvel and DC just because they got their whole cinematic universes. They're bound to make more movies regardless.
Yeah, and it's difficult because of different continuities too.
Hmm.
Because like how the MCU is different from the comics or even some of the other movies before the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yep.
Or Oh, another thing to keep in mind too is some of these movies also have TV shows coming after it. We're
Hmm.
still gonna include those movies that have those shows because
Yeah.
most likely it's a most likely case that you most people haven't seen these TV shows uh based around the movies, and I guess they can be considered like canon events, I guess, but most of the time they they're kind of unimportant in the grand scheme of things. Like I don't have it on there, but like How to Train Your Dragon, how the first movie got a TV series
Hmm.
after it, which I did watch back in the day.
Yep.
But I could say after watching the two How to Train Your Dragon movies that came after it, no, you don't need to watch the TV show.
No, you. Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool in terms of lore and in terms of like dragons and species and whatnot, but you
Hmm.
don't you, you don't need to watch the show.
No. And
Plus,
then,
the movies look way better, anyways.
yeah. And then one last thing. These are our opinions. I know for a fact at least three of my opinions are controversial. to a lot of people, maybe a couple more. And I know one of them already has a sequel announced for mine. And that one might be one of the controversial ones. But with that, we're going to get started. Jake, pick a number between 1 and 10.
I'll go with seven.
7. Cool. Okay. So, my seventh movie, and the reason why we're picking and choosing is because we know we're not going to get through the full list today. So,
Mhm.
we're just going to pick ones. I just didn't know which one to start with. So, I'm going to start with Cloudy with the Chance of Meatballs.
Oh, yeah.
It is the only It is one of the only movies with, or is the only movie on here with a direct sequel with Cloud with a Chance of Meatballs 2. In my opinion, with how Cloud with the Chance of Meatballs 2 wrapped up, with the island being saved and humans and food living in prosperity, I don't see a sequel needing to be made from it.
Yeah, I agree with that because
Mhm.
like when I watched Cloudy and Chance of Meatballs back in the day, like it seemed to have a pretty definitive ending. And while I did like Cloudy too, I did find the reason for why the events of that movie happening in the first place kind of being forced a little bit. Like
Yes.
they added extra scenes that weren't in the original movie, probably because most likely people who add extra stuff to things that don't get a sequel in the first place,
Mhm.
it's most likely because didn't they don't know whether their property is going to be successful or not, or their
Right.
movie.
Right. And then the last thing I want to include, although it has a great cast, I feel like the characters, each one of them has wrapped up their story. So, Jake, I'll leave it up to you. What's your movie?
Okay. Uh, let's see. I have a couple of different ones on there. I didn't necessarily have a way of like ranking those, but since you talked about a movie that didn't really need a sequel, I'll talk about one that didn't need a sequel, which is Atlantis, The Lost Empire.
Mm,
So people who have seen our discussing our top 10 favorite movies, I listed it as one of my top 10 favorite movies because I watched it growing up. It's also my favorite Disney movie. And yes, I will die on this hill. Um, it did not do well in the box office back in the day, which is a crying shame because there was so much effort being put into this movie. It had a really great story, had really great a really cool story based on the legend of Atlantis, and it had really great characters in it. Like cast is just r really great. Um, however, I with the way that the movie ended,
mhm.
I didn't think to myself, man, I wish this movie got a sequel. Um, But here's the interesting thing. So there was a sequel that released, which was Atlantis 2 Milo's Return, which I've only seen bits and pieces of. Um, now, this was one of those Disney direct-to-video sequels uh, that didn't really have as high of a budget as other like as like their the first entry into a movie. And this includes stuff like Cinderella, and Aladdin, and Beauty and the Beast, and The Little Mermaid, or even Hunchback, uh, that got direct-to-video sequels. And I'll admit, some of them were actually pretty good. Lion King 1.5, and what was the other one? Extremely Goofy Movie. Um,
Yep.
but uh, but Milo's return just feels kind of off. I mean, but besides not looking as visually striking as, the first movie, the pacing kind of seems to be all over the place. And the reason being was because it was originally made to be a TV series to be made after the movie's release, and they didn't release it in the first place because the movie wasn't successful. But then
Right.
they thought, well, what if we compiled all that work that we spent so much time on and release a direct-to-video sequel for it? So
Hmm.
that's what they did. Now, it's not bad. Like, I don't think it's as awful as, say, uh or unnecessary as, I don't know, like Little Mermaid 2, or trying to think of the other ones, because most Disney direct-to-video sequels are just kind of meh
Hmm.
worthy.
Like Pocahontas
Um,
too.
yeah. Um,
I mean, I still,
but
but it was meh.
yeah, but still, I still think that it didn't need a sequel.
No.
Like,
Now,
yeah,
I will say I would be fine with an Atlantis: The Lost Empire reboot.
yeah.
I feel like it deserves more love than it gets.
Yeah, I think so. And in fact, there's another movie on my list that kind of uh got the similar short end of the stick as Atlantis, The Lost Empire, but it never got like a direct-to-video sequel or anything. But I do think it's a good candidate for a reboot.
Yes. All right. So my next one, I'm cheating here.
Hmm.
It's going to be less one movie and more a company.
Okay.
So for my next choice, I'm picking most of the Pixar movies. Your Ratatouilles, Wallies, Ups, Braves, all of them.
You know what's funny is that I actually put some of those movies on my list, so I'll join you with this discussion
Mhm.
when it comes to those movies.
Yep. So one of my now I grew up with a lot of Pixar films. My brother loves Finding Nemo, Monsters Inc. I've seen, at the very least, I've seen Toy Story 3 in theaters. I'm a big fan of The Incredibles. One of my favorite movies of all time is Up. The other one's Wally. I'm always talking about how Pixar, the big difference between Pixar and just normal Disney is Pixar will double down on the emotions. Like, yes, Disney's got emotions. I mean, they kill parents just about every movie. But Pixar will spend the entire film talking about these complicated emotions. And I'm not just talking about Inside Out here. I'm talking every film. You've got, Soul with the idea of loneliness and trying to find a purpose, trying to find a name for yourself. You,
Hmm.
you've got The Good Dinosaur where you've got this friendship, starting from nothing, all because both of them are trying to find their way home.
Hmm.
You've got Wally, which is literally a film about star-crossed lovers. You know. The reason why I say that most Pixar films don't need sequels is because most of the Pixar films, their stories have wrapped up. As fun as it would be to have an Up sequel where Russell grows up, there isn't anything else that story needs.
Yeah.
Wally, I would love to see what happened to the colony, or the human colony after they come back to Earth.
You do get to see that happen
Well,
though.
you get to
In
see
the end
part of it.
credits.
Yeah, but that's like written record. That could be something that everyone writes. It could be, here's what's going on and here's what we want to happen. But what I mean is like how humanity's adjusting to this new environment. I think that'd be a cool thing to see, but Wally's story has ended. Same with Merida and Brave. The story focused on a bond between a girl and her mother. That story ended. Most stories have ended. The only exception that I have for Pixar not needing another sequel is I want to see Inside Out 3.
I think so too. Like I think out of all their concepts that needed sequels, like I think Inside Out is like deserving of one.
Inside Out.
At least one more. Because you're talking about someone that starts as an infant in the first movie, grows up to like be a child, having to deal with emotions, and then you get in the sequel, you get to their teenage years, and they're dealing with brand new emotions and
Mhm,
learning to balance that out, being all sorts and whatnot. Um, Now, I'm not exactly sure what the third movie would be, but we could assume college years, um,
mhm. Well, I wouldn't
possibly.
even go that far. I would say high school, like maybe junior or senior year. This,
Okay.
I mean, I know it's another anxiety type story, but you've got college classes, you've got looking ahead to college. At this time, Riley's probably on the varsity team for hockey because she is an athlete. All right, sorry about the little stop. I don't know where we left off at this point because the audio.
We were talking about Inside Out.
Well, okay, wait, hold on. What was the last thing you heard before your audio cut out?
You were talking about the possibilities of an Inside Out 3, what that storyline would look like. Something about their high school years.
Yeah, because you've got college classes, preparation for college itself, and then you've got she's a she's an athlete in hockey, so she'd be, in varsity for that. Or probably aiming for varsity with that. I know that story's already been told in Inside Out too, but I'm sure there's that. She's trying to be noticed by talent scouts so she can get a scholarship, and I'm sure
Mhm.
all of that would bring on more stuff for anxiety and fear and maybe cause a new emotion called stress to form. Like I said, other than that, all the other Pixar movies have had a definitive end. And not just a definitive end, what I would say a great end.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like if you were made a sequel to like Wall-E and Up and Ratatouille, that like it just isn't that possible. And like, here's the thing. I was okay with Toy Story game sequels
Mm-hmm.
because for a time, especially with the way 3 ended. Because kind of like an Inside Out a little bit. You know, I mean, you're more so focusing on the toys, but like
Right.
they're growing with Andy, their owner. And in
Mm-hmm.
the third movie, he leaves and they get taken care of by Bonnie. Now, there were like those two side mini movies.
Yeah, but those were okay.
Yeah, those were pretty good. It was Toy Story 4 that I had a problem with.
Mm-hmm.
And despite how good looking that movie looked, the plot was just total garbage. I'm sorry.
Right.
Just it just I don't know.
So,
I don't know, man.
when you were like when I noticed that your uh audio was cut off, I had brought up Toy Story and how Toy Story is a great example of why you shouldn't make a sequel after you've wrapped up the entire story. Because the entire story was wrapped up with three.
Mhm.
Now they have, or now they have a fourth one out, kind of ruined how the third movie ended.
And they're making a fifth one.
And
Why?
making the fifth one. Well, because it's their most profitable one. I mean, they've made three of them. Why not? But
Yeah.
regardless, that's why I'm saying that the Pixar movies are, or most of the Pixar movies, do not need sequels.
Yeah. So I'm gonna bring up another series of movies, but unlike Pixar's movies, none of these have sequels. And but much like Pixar movies, they have definitive endings to them. And that is the Studio Ghibli movies.
Mm,
Um, so I've been trying to make my way through Studio Ghibli movies. The first one I've ever watched was Howl's Moving Castle. I've seen Secret World of Arrietty. And then most recently, I've watched uh, Princess Mononoke. I watched Castle in the Sky, and I watched Nausicaa. Uh,
mhm,
and I plan on seeing some of the other ones, especially the ones by Miyazaki, like The Boy and His Heron, Spirited Away, My
mhm,
Neighbor Totoro, um, just to, oh, and The Wind Rises too. Uh, but the thing, but the thing is that unlike the Pixar movies, because like this is another studio where like they put so much effort into their stories and their visuals and even just like the art direction that they go with these um and even some of the worlds that they base their characters on uh but the thing is, unlike Pixar movies, because like here's the thing, Pixar movies, like some stuff is demonstrated through visuals, but there's still dialogue to go through. Studio Ghibli movies do not have that much dialogue, which is why if you want to learn Japanese, you're not going to learn that much from a Studio Ghibli movie because there's barely any dialogue in those, and most of it is visual storytelling. Kind of like 2001: A Space Odyssey. You
mhm,
know, even in Studio Ghibli movies, their opening and ending credits still have visuals tacked onto them, and there's no dialogue in between them. Um, but yeah, I just think Studio Ghibli movies do not need a sequel. But again, they don't run into that issue because they haven't done it for a single one of their movies. Um, and there are some franchises where even if they have like a number two next to their name, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a continuation of a story. Like a game series that's a great example of this is Final Fantasy, where each numbered entry has its own set of characters, has its own world to traverse, and its own lore. The only things that tie those games together are some of the battle and gameplay mechanics, um, some reoccurring spiritual successor characters, or stuff like chocobos and moogles and whatever, and the music too. So yeah, I think Studio Ghibli movies, they're okay with not having sequels. The only way that I can see them having a sequel is if an ending didn't feel definitive enough. But there are some movies where they leave their endings ambiguous on purpose
mhm.
and not just, oh, we don't know how to end this story, so we're just going to leave it anonymous. No, usually when a very experienced writer leaves their ending ambiguous, it's usually with good purpose in mind.
Right. All right. And I completely understand that. All right. So I'm gonna hop to one. Jake, I don't think you've seen this one. Like I could probably bet money you haven't seen this one.
Lay it on me.
All right. So this is a movie that not only has a confirmed movie, but the trailer for this sequel is already out, and the plot details for it are out. It is The Black Phone.
I've not seen that.
You've not seen it. All right. So The Black Phone is a horror movie about this guy who kidnaps kids and takes them to this little dungeon. And in this dungeon is a phone that will ring, and the ghosts of his previous kills will try to talk to whoever's in the little dungeon to try and help them escape. So I so here's the thing about this one. I liked the film when I watched it a couple of years ago, and that was when I didn't really watch as many horror films. So my so when I finished watching that, I'm like, "Oh, this is cool. This needs a sequel." You know, and my idea for the sequel is less of a horror, like genuine horror film, but more of a psychological horror where the main character is battling this like internal killer, like the killer from the Black Phone inside of him when that killer's not even there because of the trauma induced from the movie. But then I started watching more horror films, and the more I watched, the less I felt that the Black Phone needed a sequel. Because then I knew Black Phone sequels probably not going to. Well, at first I thought it's not going to happen because the killer's dead. There was no supernatural element to the killer himself. And I'm sitting here like, if they make a sequel, they're gonna bring back the killer, or they're gonna bring back a copycat, or bring in a copycat killer, and it's just gonna basically be the same story, or a general same story. So I started leaning towards not needing a sequel, and now that I know that the plot for the next Black Phone involves the Black Phone killer, who I don't remember the name of, him coming back as a ghost because he died in that dungeon. Like it's a cool concept and all, but I feel it's unnecessary when you have other horror films that have taken that same premise. Not a lot of well-known ones, but you've got these horror films who have or that all have, oh, you killed the killer, good job. And then, oh, no, killer came back next one. We don't know how. Could be magic. Could be he was resilient.
It's the same epidemic that's in Resident Evil.
Exactly.
Um, yeah. Uh, there is one horror not a horror movie, but a murder mystery movie that I would like to talk about. But because I want to get this one out of the way, because I'm pretty sure you have this on your list too. Big Hero 6.
I do not have Big Hero 6 on my list because I
Oh,
think it deserves a sequel.
wait, 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 wait.
Oh, no,
Okay,
this is great.
let me rethink that one a little bit.
No, 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 don't rethink that. Just
No, no, I guess I was doing it the list last night, and I think I don't know what I was thinking. I do.
oh no, if you genuinely think it does
No,
it,
no, I don't think so. I think it does need a sequel. It did get a TV series, which I
it
think
did
was
get a
pretty
TV.
good. Yeah, I like the art style for it. It was pretty cool. But no, I have other movies I would like to talk about
Oh,
anyways.
hold on. I can you at least explain why you initially put Big Hero 6 on the list?
Because I was doing this late last night and I was tired.
Oh, it was literally just that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anyways, um, but let's see, what should I talk about? I think a movie that should not need a sequel is you know what? I teased it already. Let's talk about Treasure Planet.
okay.
So, similar to Atlantis, this came out in a time period where 2D movies or 2D hand-drawn style movies were kind of getting faded away for 3D CGI ones.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but uh now, unlike Atlantis, it's not based on any like pre-existing legend or anything, but it does have a pretty cool world concept. Now, I've not seen it in a bit, but I remember really enjoying the movie, and I do plan on rewatching it at some point. Um, but unlike Atlantis, it did not get a sequel. And seeing as how we've already talked about how Atlantis' sequel was kind of underwhelming, I'm okay with that. I am, however, okay with them rebooting it because the
Yeah.
story concept is so cool.
Mm-hmm. Well, just like Atlantis, Treasure Planet is one of those films that didn't get as much love as it should have gotten when it was released.
Yeah. And like you know, there were other movies that were kind of in that style that
Mm-hmm.
did not do so well in their box office numbers either, but that was also for good reason.
Right.
Like what was that one movie? I think it was called Titan AE.
Mm, yeah.
That was done by like Fox Animation. That ended up being their last film, and the movie was just a bit visually speaking, it looked kind of all right.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of handled the same way as Atlantis and Treasure Planet, where it was 2D and CGI elements mixed in.
Right.
Um, Unlike those movies, though, this movie's plot was bad.
Ugh. All right. Yeah. All right. So moving on. This is going to be another. This one isn't a series,
Yeah.
but it is sort of like a type of movie. And I wrote down two examples, so I'm going to say those two examples. It is the map of tiny perfect things and
Okay.
Groundhog Day. Have you?
Okay. I've heard of Groundhog Day. I've not seen it. I've not heard of the little map before though.
So the map of tiny perfect things is basically Groundhog Day, but you got two people going through the same day over and over again. Now, I love the idea of time loop movies because you repeat the day over and over again. It gives you that sense of, okay, now what do I do today? Like if I were repeating today over and over again, I know for a fact I'm not going to do the same thing over and over again. I'm going to try to do something different. But so to continue with what I'm saying, I've seen the map of Tiny Perfect Things. I've not seen Groundhog Day yet. I'm planning. Wait until Groundhog Day and then I'll watch it. Seriously, I've been trying to watch it on Groundhog Day, and it's not on a streaming service when it's like on that day. And it's been bothering me. Anyway, I like those time loop films where it's like you gotta grow that day as the film progresses,
Yeah.
but it leaves all of the development for that day. Anything, you know, I don't see a need for a sequel to either of those films. I feel like if there were a sequel, it'd be a sequel to Groundhog Day. It'd probably be something involving Bill Murray's kid. Bill Murray had a kid, and now the kid's going through the same day over and over again. And, I don't like the idea of sequels. Like, not always, but I don't like the idea of sequels doing the cop out thing and making the same movie, but with the kids instead of the adult, or like the main character.
Mhm.
I think the only exception to this is the Death Day films or the Happy Death Day films, another horror franchise. But that's because, at least with the first one, haven't seen the second one yet, but at least with the first one, it's cool. I gotta solve my murder before I get killed again. And to me, it's a really cool premise.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So, uh, maybe just to end our discussion, I initially didn't put it on the list, but I'm going to now. Uh, some of these movies do have sequels, and at first I'm going to be talking them in a broader spectrum, but I'm talking about movies based on video games,
Mm,
which have been a thing since the early 90s.
okay, so you got one of my movies there.
What's one of your movies?
Controversial, a Minecraft movie.
Um, I can see that.
Hmm.
So here's the thing. With some minor exceptions, talk about that minor exception in a bit. Um, I don't think most of those movies are deserving of a sequel. And especially when you talk about the video game movies early on, which I don't think any of them would have wanted a sequel anyways. Like most of them are kind of campy, and in the case of Super Mario Brothers, it's really bad.
Hmm. Yep.
Um, Now they did get better. They did get better as time went on. Because the
Mm-hmm.
Sonic movies seem to be doing decently well. Um, and the new Super Mario Brothers movie by Illumination seems to be pretty good. It's supposed to be getting a sequel too. Not sure if it necessarily needed one, but you know. And there's supposed to be a Zelda movie coming out in a couple years. Um, but there's also been stuff like Mortal Kombat, Street
Mm.
Fighter, where they didn't necessarily. I think some of them got sequels, but they mostly just like kind of reiterated some stuff a little bit.
So the original Mortal Kombat got a sequel, and now this new Mortal Kombat series is getting a sequel with Carl Urban as Johnny Cage.
Yeah, I don't know. Like some gaming franchises just don't. Most games don't have heavy stories tied to them, or their stories are so complicated that they can't really be fit into a 2 or 3 hour movie.
No.
Like, because like if you were to take a game series that could technically be done in a movie, it'd be Metal Gear Solid, because uh most of those games are like 80% movie, 20% game.
All
But
right.
they still have those gaming elements tied to them.
Mm-hmm.
And the director of those games, Hideo Kojima, originally wanted to be a film director. So that's kind of a reason why, you know, it'd be cool to get a Metal Gear movie, but I'm not sure if that would be possible. Well, especially since Kojima is involved with Metal Gear since leaving Konami, and Konami's not really doing anything with their franchises. But the minor exception that I will make when it comes to these movies is Pokemon. Uh, but no, no, no. Now, when I say sequels, I don't necessarily, because like
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure the only the most recent Pokemon film that like was pretty big in success was Detective Pikachu.
Hmm.
I am not asking for a sequel to that movie.
So
Like,
that's so sorry to cut you off, but the funny thing was I was tempted on putting that on my list.
yes. Um, but when I say that I want more Pokemon movies, I mean I want more Pokemon movies,
Mhm.
but with different characters and different scenarios. And
Yeah.
they mostly have gotten this right because
Hmm.
well, kind of, because there are those movies based on the anime, um, which there's a debate of whether a lot of those are canon or not to like the anime series.
Hmm.
Um, but most of those movies, like on their own, uh, they're pretty. Most of them are pretty good. There's some
Hmm.
stinkers in the bunch. In fact, I think some of the later ones that came out recently are pretty good. Like I've watched Power of Us not too long ago, and it's a pretty good movie. Um, Secret of the Jungle, I've heard good things about it, and then the I Choose You movie, which was done in commemoration for the 20th anniversary of the anime.
Hmm.
Uh, like even though it kind of has a similar beginning to the anime. It kind of diverges a little bit, but it is pretty cool. Um, but I am not wanting a sequel to Detective Pikachu, especially since um because like Detective Pikachu was originally a 3DS game that
Hmm.
came out. Um, and it got a sequel and it sucked.
Right.
um
I don't think Detective Pikachu the movie's even based off. Like it's loosely based off the game.
Yeah, yeah, because the actual game itself is nothing spectacular to write about. And the fact that they made a sequel that feels lesser in quality to that game is just no. But I'm not wanting a Detective Pikachu sequel. I would like what I would like to see as a just an out there concept is I would like a Pokemon movie, like Pokemon movies that take place in some of the different regions.
Hmm.
Or like I've been watching Pokemon Horizons, the second season, and in that series, you travel to some of the regions on a freaking airship with a crew,
Right.
like which we never really gotten in the previous anime series before. Um, it's it's such a cool concept. Um, and I think something like that could be attempted because it's like with Pokemon games, I feel like well, the Pokemon series in general, I think there's a lot of flexibility when it comes to like having stories based around different places. And it doesn't even need to be a whole region. It could just be like a city, like it was in Detective Pikachu.
Right. Right. All right. All right. So do you have any more movies on your list?
Yeah, no.
Okay. I still have a few. So I think I'm gonna do a quick lightning round or
Mhm.
attempt a quick lightning round. I still
Yeah,
want a little description on some of these.
yeah.
I've got The Iron Giant, which
Oh yeah. Yeah, I like that movie.
it's a great movie, and the ending does have it where it could be set up as a sequel, or it could set up a sequel, but I feel like the story of the Iron Giant ends there.
Yeah, it doesn't need it.
It doesn't really need it. Besides, if you've got one movie that touches the hearts where Vin Diesel only says a handful of things. Okay, you've got four of those movies, but still. Sorry, Guardians of the Galaxy reference. But regardless, it stands alone really well. And I feel like if it gets a sequel, it's not gonna go as well. I also have a movie called Love and Monsters on my list. It's a lesser known film starring Dylan O'Brien, where this guy's traveling across this apocalypse-ridden Earth because we threw too many nukes in the air to stop a meteor, and it basically turned the radioactive shrimp from Walmart into giant creatures that eat humans. It, it is one of those movies I will recommend because it's a phenomenal movie, but it doesn't need a sequel because the story itself kind of wrapped up in the end. In the end where it's revealed that, oh, these monsters aren't really bad, it's just we do bad things to them. Which is why I feel like we would totally fail if aliens were to come to Earth. Because I feel like someone's gonna attack it, and then they'll treat it as an act of war. Uh, I've got Free Guy, which is the sort of video game, sort of not. Oh, Free Guy is one of my favorite movies, and as much as I would like to see what happens to each of the characters later on and everything going on in this new game that they're in, there's nowhere else the story could go. The love interests are back together, the enemy is put to jail, and Guy is living his best life, riding centaurs with his best friend and his buff alternate self that says just as many words as Vin Diesel in The Iron Giant.
Hmm.
Just maybe not as charming. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, then in lieu of the new Spaceballs movies that's coming out, I thought of a Mel Brooks movie that doesn't need a sequel, and that's Young Frankenstein. I'm a big fan of Frankenstein as just a general concept. And it's not like I can't see a sequel coming up from it, but the story itself, just like all the Pixar films, wrapped up so well that the idea of of a sequel for this film coming out, it it would make the whole series worse. That's kind of what I fear about Spaceballs, but I can see where a sequel to Spaceballs would go.
Yeah, in space. When did the first Spaceballs come out?
Sometime in the 80s.
Yeah,
I
so
think. Was that 80s or 90s? I want to say it was the 80s though.
it would have had to have been after the original Star Wars trilogy came out, but
Yeah, it was after the original Star Wars trilogy. Hold on.
yeah, yeah, but
87.
uh,
It came out
yeah,
1987.
yeah. So yeah, that movie I see having a sequel, especially
Mhm.
because it'd be one thing if they released a sequel like 10 years later or something, but I think it's a good enough time to release a sequel. Poke fun at Star Wars, and hey, it might even sell more than what Star Wars has been doing as of late.
Yeah. Oh no, the new Star Wars concept that came out called Star Wars Starfighter, that looks interesting. I mean, I'm just a sucker for Ryan Gosling, but still.
We'll see.
Yep. All right, and then my last movie I have on this list is a movie that came out, I want to say 2 years ago now. I saw it in theaters. It was a great film. It's technically a sequel, but it tells a completely different story with a completely different group of characters. It's the Twisters film. And this isn't me saying it wouldn't be cool to see another film where you've got the same people chasing tornadoes. Or maybe even a film where you get the original cast or some of the original cast and this new cast working together to chase a tornado or try to stop a tornado. But in the end, that's in my mind what the movies are. They're films where people chase tornadoes and try to warn people before the tornadoes touch down to evacuate.
You know, there is a recurring character in those movies.
Yes, it's the guy from the airport. Kind of.
No, it's the tornado.
Oh, yeah. Yep, he is a recurring character. Always the antagonist. I want to see a film where the tornado is a protagonist.
It could take down the next Godzilla in the next Godzilla movie. There's supposed to be a new Godzilla movie coming out, I think.
Yes. Yes, there is. Oh, what was it about? Because we just got New Empire, and I could have sworn there was a new trailer out. It was another Con X Godzilla. What was the movie called?
Mhm.
Supernova. That's what it's called.
Ah,
I have no clue what it's about. Oh, wait, I think it's got that like alien that kind of looks like if Cyclops became a kaiju. I don't know. I know nothing about Godzilla other than there's Godzilla and King
I
Kong.
don't know much about Godzilla or King Kong.
I don't know. I've seen the new movies up until the New Empire, but that's just because I haven't gotten a chance to watch the New Empire yet.
Mhm.
Yep. But that's my list. So, like I said, this is up, or this is a bunch of movies that we don't feel need sequels or need more sequels. I'm sure later on down the line, we're going to have a list of movies that don't have sequels that we would love to see sequels to.
We already mentioned one, Big Hero 6.
Yeah, Big Hero 6 is a good one. And I would like to mention my concept for a Truman Show too. But those could be for another day. For today, I'd say this would be a wrap. So thank you all for watching. Next week will be Jake's concept or Jake's topic. And I'm sure Jake's gonna have something planned out. I know I didn't really have anything planned out, but you know, it is what it is.
Let's say we're gonna start catching them all.
Oh, yes, we're doing that next week. All right.
You'll see what it is.
Yep. But besides that, my name's Mr. Xavier Dean.
I'm Jacob Green.
We're gonna wish you a wonderful day. Be safe. For those of you who are in warmer weather, be warm. For some of us who are in colder weather, stay no, scratch that. For those of you in cooler weather, stay warm, and those of you in warmer weather, stay cool. Man, I was doing so well too. Uh, but have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next week.